68b, going on to 69a. Nafal agav challah. What if it falls into vinegar? So vinegar is a much sharper flavor. So Rashi learns that the question is that maybe we say that it's so strong, the vinegar, that therefore the flavor imparted by the mouse is not so strong. And the whole permissibility of a mouse falling in is that it's no tam lifgam. It gives detrimental flavor. But in this case, maybe the vinegar is too strong, and therefore it does not impart a detrimental flavor to it. Do we say that or do we not say that? So Amr Le Rav Hillel Rav Ashi says Rav Hillel to Rav Ashi, Rav Kahana v'Aser, there was a story that happened with Rav Kahana that a mouse fell into the vinegar. That a mouse fell into the vinegar, and Rav Kahana prohibited it. So obviously, we understand this to mean the way Rashi learns is that if it's prohibited, therefore we don't say that the detrimental flavor was imparted, which would permit it. Rather, we would say that the vinegar is too strong. So Amar Le, no, you can't bring a proof from there. Why? Because hahu imritute imirtat. Rashi learns what it means is somehow the mouse got disintegrated. Yeah, little pieces of the mouse, and therefore we're worried. We're worried that when you drink, there's going to be little pieces of mouse that are in the drink. Yeah, how exciting, exactly. And therefore, since we're worried about that, so therefore you're not allowed to drink that. You're not allowed to drink that. Yeah, because you can't eat pieces of mouse. So that's that. So you can't bring up.
You had dairy earlier.
You had dairy earlier. So yeah, you don't go back to those people for a meal again. So okay, Ravina Savar. So now we're going to have different opinions. How much vinegar would you need to consider this mouse nullified or not? So Ravina Savar l'shu'urei b'mei avachad. Amar lo garami truma. Just like truma takes more than 1 out of 60, it takes 1 out of 100. If you have 101 pieces of non-truma corresponding to 1 piece of truma, we say it's nullified and the mixture is permitted. So too here, if you have 101 measurements of vinegar corresponding to the mouse, then we say it is permitted. Good morning, Jared. So that's what he thought. Because maybe it's not like truma, maybe it's like spices of truma. Maybe it's like spice of truma or that's in a pot, and there we say that the taste is not nullified because the spices are sharper. The spices are sharper, and therefore that's not going to nullify it. Now, how much? So therefore, how much are spices of truma? Back to 1 in 60, not 1 in 100.
No, when fell into the beer.
That's 1 in 100, but now we're saying it's like the spices of truma. So the spice of truma, what would happen with the spices of truma? It says below batal tamayo, the spices are not going to be nullified. Right. So even in a mixture of more than 1 to 100, it's still not going to nullify it. Maybe maybe this is too sharp. It's not going to nullify it. The taste of the mouse is too sharp. It's not going to be nullified. Even more than 100 mixtures of vinegar, even if there's more than 100 mixtures of vinegar there. The idea of it, right. So Rav Achai Shir B'chala B'kamshi. He said that vinegar is measured at 50. So meaning, even though usually we use 60 as our go-to, but here he's saying that you don't need 60, even 50 corresponding to it is going to be enough. It sounds like because the taste of the vinegar is very, very strong, so it's going to nullify it even if you don't have 60 measures corresponding to this 1 piece of the mouse, only 50. That's going to be enough. Now, Rav Shmuel, Braid Ravika, Shi'er B'Shikra B'Shisin. they said when it comes to at least beer, it's going to be 60. And Hilchas Halacha is Idi v'Idi b'Shisin. Vinegar, beer, it's going to be our classic case of 1 in 60. V'chein kol isur and shemer Torah, and so too, all the mixtures in the Torah is going to be 1 in 60. 1 in 60. Now, Rashi points out, but it's controversial. Rashi points out that this is talking about when you have two different species. We know this thing called min b'she'eno mina, so you have dry versus liquid. It's two opposing species. There's a clash between them. There, 1 in 60 is going to nullify it. But if they were the same species, the same type of food, and that was mixed together, so Rashi says we don't say 1 in 60. We say even the tiniest bit is going to prohibit the mixture. So yeah, but I think that itself is very controversial, and others say no, we go 1 in 60 throughout. And I think the halacha is like that: 1 in 60, whether you are same species or where you're different species. So let's say you have a liquid of a prohibited mixture with a liquid of permitted mixture. They're both liquids, so they're both the same kind of food. So that's also going to be 1 in 60. And Rashi will say no, if it's the same kind, it's going to prohibit it even with a tiny little bit. Okay, fine. Mishnah says Ovid Kochavim. So you have an idol worshiper. We're going to have, I think, about 4 cases of different circumstances where you left the idol worshiper alone with your wine. So first he's carrying your wine, a barrel of wine from place to place. So now, if the Gemara doesn't explain what it's referring to, but if it's, so to speak, safeguarded, you can assume it's safeguarded, and when you come back, it's permitted. We'll see what that means. And im hodio, but if you tell the guy, I'll leave you back in a while, im hodio shu maflig, then it's going to be prohibited. But what does it mean you're gone for a while? How much time is a while? So now it's going to be a debate that's going to repeat itself 3 times over. So, kidei sheyishtom v'yistom v'yigo. So the rabbis hold it's enough time that he can drill a hole and touch the wine, stir the wine, spill the wine, and seal it up. So they used up like a barrel with some kind with a top that was either plastered on or clayed on. So as long as you can make a drill in that and then plaster it back up, so then that's enough time. That's too much time already. That we assume that when you come back, he's messed with it already, and therefore it's going to be prohibited. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel says he has a longer time period. He has Kadesh Yiftach. He actually has to open up. He has to remove the entire cover of the barrel and put on a new one. So that takes more time. So let's say drilling it and replastering takes an hour. He has to take off the entire top and then put on a new one. Let's say that's going to be 5 hours, whatever it is. So he's more lenient because he requires more time. So if you're gone for a longer period of time, Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel might still permit the wine, and the rabbis might still prohibit the wine. So that's the first case where he went and he carried your barrel from place to place. Fine. Case number 2 is Hamaniach Yain B'Karon of Basvina. You left it in a carriage, or in a wagon, or in a boat. So now your wine is in an idol worshiper's wagon, or it's in an idol worshiper's boat. Now v'halachlo b'kampandaria, and he took a shortcut. So he took a shortcut. So now v'nichnas l'medina v'rachatz. It sounds like you went into the city, took a shower, came back. So then the wine is fine. We don't say it's prohibited because you went on a short trip and came back, and the idol worshiper is scared to have messed with your wine in that period of time. However, im hodio shehu maflik, if you're telling him, have a business meeting, he'll be back in a while. So then the same thing. Either it's enough time to drill or enough time to make a brand new top of the barrel. So kadesh yishom v'yisnom v'yigo, you have to drill and then reseal, and then I think dry off the plaster. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel Omer kadesh yiftach, that's enough time to open the barrel, the yigof, and then put on a new covering, and have that dry off. It's a much longer period of time. That's going to be the second case. The Gemara doesn't ask why I have all these cases. Because the same thing over and over again. You leave your wine, you leave the idol worshiper in your store. So you have a wine store, and then you leave the idol worshiper there with you. So you're coming and going, that's fine, because he's always going to be scared. You might come in the next moment, and then he's going to fire you if he sees you messing with his wine. However, If you tell him, well, I'll be back in a while, so then what's a while? Same thing. To drill a hole and replaster and dry. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel Omer, no. Enough time to open up the barrel and then to replaster it and then for it to dry. So a much longer period of time. So Haya Ochel Imo Alashuk. Fourth case, you're actually eating with him. You're eating with the idol worshiper, whatever it is, you have a business meeting in who knows where. So in India, I don't know, and you're eating with the idol worshiper, and ala shulchan ve'iniach, leginin ala shulchan, ve'ligin ala dulbaki. Sounds like you're leaving a cup of wine, a barrel of wine, a bottle of wine, a flask of wine. Okay, you're leaving some wine on the table, and you also leave one in a dulbaki. Sounds like some kind of cupboard, some kind of in your china cabinet, whatever it is. Fine. So now you have wine on the table and wine in the cupboard. Now, you left the table, so you left the table. Now, mash ala shulchan aser. You left your open, sounds like an open flask of wine, open flask of wine on the table. That's going to be prohibited because we do assume that while you were gone, he didn't touch it, right? He's not your worker. You're not paying him to carry it. You're not paying him to be in your store. He's the guy you're having a business meeting with. So that we assume the wine on the table is going to be prohibited. You have to assume it was probably touched. However, what about the wine in the cupboard? Chaladul baki mutter. That is going to be permitted. Because that wasn't fit for the meal. We don't assume he just went and touched it. However, the Amar lo have a mosig v'shosek. Told him, enjoy, I'm leaving for a little bit. Drink away, enjoy. Mosig v'shosek, you can dilute the wine, drink the wine, enjoy. So then, then we assume even the wine that's in the cupboard is going to be prohibited because you told him that he could drink. So when that wine ran out, he went and took the wine from the cupboard and had a festive meal. So, okay, so that was the fourth case. Chavios, psuchos. So now any barrels of wine that you left open with him, those are going to be prohibited. However, stumos, mutaros. However, the ones that are sealed are going to be permitted. In enough time, it's only if it's enough time that it's going to be the top of the barrel is going to be replaced and plastered and dried. So here we do not mention the rabbi's opinion of drilling. We only mention Rabbi Shimon Gamliel's opinion. So we're going to see why, but that's an important point. So okay, fine. So 4 cases. So the first case was that you left it when it's in a status of being guarded. He's traveling and he's carrying your barrel from place to place. If it was becheskas hamishtamer, it's what does it mean? It was in a status of safeguarding. What does it mean? So let's see. Becheskas hamishtamer. So now we're going to bring a brisa that says the following: Hare shahayu chamarov upolim tu'unin taharos. Sounds like you have unlearned workers. They don't know the halachos, what we call the amarats, and the people of the land. They don't know the laws, and therefore we're always worried that they might have touched your pure things with impure hands, and they impurified it. So the case here is right. That's similar to our case with the idol worshiper. They were your workers or your donkey drivers, and it sounds like they were carrying taharos, food that was tahor, that was pure. So it says the brisa, even if you left them for more, for kedei mil, enough to travel a mil, so then you can assume that the harosav are tahoros. If you go within a mil away from them, you can assume that the pure food, remains in a state of purity. You don't have to assume that it's impure. However, you go, I'll follow you. Since they couldn't see you anymore, you went so far away, they're ahead of you and they look back and they don't see you, then we say your taharos of our tmeos. Then your pure foods, you have to assume, are impure. Now, the problem is, what are we talking about that makes it pure and impure? So, ma'ishna reisha or ma'ishna sefer. So Rashi understands that these workers they're handling the food, meaning they're touching it, they're carrying it. They're not just loaded in a bag on the donkey. They're actually carrying it. So you're seeing them touch it. So if that's true, so then why did you why did you say that, that the first case is going to be permitted? They're touching your food. Shouldn't you assume that unlearned people that are touching your pure food have impure hands? And therefore, I don't understand why the first case is permitted. Just because you're near them and you're not within a mil away from them, and they can still see you. But why is it permitted? Why is it pure? Amar of Yitzchak, interesting case. Reisha b'mitayir chamar v'polo. Before you went on a trip with them, before you hired these workers, you took them all to the mikvah and you dunked them. You dunked them in the mikvah, and now you're guaranteed that it's going to be pure. They're going to have pure hands. So, Reisha b'mitayir chamar v'polo v'kach. Says the Gemara, well, that's great for the beginning case. But what about the second case? If they're so pure, then even if you left them for more than a mil, you're 5 miles away. What are you worried about? Before you went, you stopped by Rachel's well, and then you went on your way. So what's the problem? So seifanami, the seifa, the latter case should also be a concern that you have. It should also be there should be no concern, and therefore it should be permitted. So we say no, but ein am haaretz makbid al maga chavero. They themselves, you're right, they went to the mikvah, nothing to worry about. But since now you can't see them, they're a few miles ahead of you. You went off at exit 20, they keep going till exit 25, whatever it is. They look back in the rearview mirror and you're gone. What's going to happen? Their friends who didn't go to the mikvah might come, and you might have a wine party with them or whatever the food here is. So they're, even though they themselves, now that you took them to the mikvah, they understand enough that they're pure, but they're not strict on meeting up with a friend in the middle, and he might touch the food. So therefore, we give this limit of you have to see them. So, now if that's true, so then afilu reishanami. So if that's true, so then even in the first case, where you still distance yourself somewhat from them, yeah, even so, meaning I think we're going back to our Mishnah. Back to our Mishnah. So if that's true, even in the Mishnah's case, in the first case of the Mishnah where you left them, but you didn't tell them that you're leaving, so then you should always be worried that maybe they met up with somebody, and that somebody could have touched the open barrels of wine, and then you have to be worried that you should be worried for that. So why in the first case of our Mishnah did it say that the wine is permitted? It's only if you told him I'm leaving for a long time is it prohibited. Even if you didn't tell him, but as long as he can't see you, you can't see him, you should always be worried that maybe he met up with a friend along the way and impurified your wine, your barrel of wine. So if you the Reishanami, so Amarava says, Rava, turn the page, Bibalahem derech aklasu. So it sounds like even though you can't see them, but the owner of the barrels can always come like in a diagonal way. So I mean, even though generally you go this way, but he can always come through this way, come around the end, and therefore the idol worshiper is going to be scared of the owner coming and catching him. So there's another way to get to you. So then that's enough of a fear to, and even though he can't see you, that's enough of a fear that he's going to invoke in you that he's not going to go and mess with your wine. So, well, that's true. So, so if that's true, then who cares if you tell them, hey, I'm leaving for a while, and then there's a dispute. Well, what's a while? Why does it matter? Even if you tell them I'm leaving for a while, as long as you always come in a circuitous route. Thank you. Exactly. You can outflank him. Exactly. So you come through that way. So who cares? Tell him whatever you want. I'll be gone in a few days. But you can always take that other, you can reroute on Waze and meet him there, and that's it. So says no. Once you told them, came to Amar Lamlechu, you go, I'll follow. So then Samcha Daitayu. Once that you go and I'll follow, they sort of rely on the fact that like they're not going to see you for a while. Once you told them, go ahead, they don't assume that you're going to come now and like catch them in the middle. You're gone for a while. Then there's a dispute. What's a while? Drilling the hole or putting on a new top? Okay, that was that. Now we had these many cases. You left the guy in the store, you left him on the wagon, or you ate with him. So what do you need all these cases for? B'tzricha. You need all of them. Why? The itana obed kochavim. If you only taught a case of the idol worshiper, so they're all cases of idol worshippers, the Rashi doesn't say what it means is the guy that's the first case of carrying your wine. If you only had a case where you employed an idol worshiper to carry your wine for you, and not the case of the boat. So by that case, there we assume you might always come and catch the guy. If he's on a boat or on a wagon, so he'll steer the boat in the way that he wants, and you won't be able to see him anymore. And he'll do whatever he wants with the wine. So therefore, the Mishnah could teach you not so fast. It depends. It depends if you told him I'm gone for a while or not. So if you only had a case of a wagon or a boat, well, mishum desaver dilma asi beorcha achrisi, the Jew's going to think, maybe the idol worshiper went, or maybe the idol worshiper is going to think that he's going to go a different way. Now, the owner, the Jew, can't see him. So what's he going to do? He's going to have a kaya aguda. He's going to go stand on a wall. He's going to go stand on a high area. He's going to stand by the lighthouse or something and look out with his binoculars. The chazil, he's going to find, where's that boat? I can't see him anymore. Once he's standing up high and looking, he's going to see me pouring the wine and doing my thing. So therefore, that's going to be prohibited. However, if the idol worshiper is in the store, what's he going to do? He has the code. He's going to lock up the store and do whatever he wants. I won't be able to get him. So, Kamash Malan, that even the case of the store, where he's able to potentially lock it up, it still depends. If you don't tell him you're gone for a while, it's going to be permitted because you always worry that you might come back. If you tell him you're gone for a while, now it depends. Enough time to drill or to replace the cover. Okay, Kamash Malan. Now, get a little nitty gritty in how they make the tops of the barrels. Yeah, we got to talk to our wine talk about this. See what they do nowadays, right? But let's see. So Amar Rabba Barchan, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. This dispute between Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel and the rabbis of is it enough time to drill or more time to actually replace it? In what case were they arguing about? There seems to be two ways to put this lid onto the barrel. One is bishel sid. Machlokas is bishel sid. Sid is plaster. There's going to be plaster and clay. I don't know exactly how you make plaster versus clay. Sounds like semantics thing. However, at least Rashi explains based on the Gemara right now is that sid is white. Sounds like plaster. I don't know. It's been whitened like paint or something, thick paint. Plaster is white, and therefore white sort of blends in with the cover of the barrel. However, tit is clay. It's still dark, and it takes a few days to blend in, but it's still dark. Why does that make a difference? Because the more you look like the barrel, the less the non-Jew is going to be worried that the Jew's going to catch him that he's going to catch him in the fact that he changed the cover or that he drilled the cover because it looks like it did before. But if it's black and the rest of the cover is white and this part's a little darker, that's obvious what you did. So, Amar Rabbi Yochanan machlokas bishel sid. The dispute between drilling or replacing the cover is only when we're talking about plaster, which is the color that blends in with the cover of the barrel. Aval bishel tit, when it comes to actual clay, which is a darker color, everyone's going to agree. Divrei hakol, even the chachamim, the rabbis are going to agree that it's enough time kadesh yiftach v'yigo. It has to be enough time to actually replace the cover, because if it's just amount of time to drill a hole, so then everyone's going to see that the little hole that you now covered in a little bit is darker than the rest of the cover. So that's going to be obvious, and that's going to be prohibited. However, that's going to be permitted because that's going to be the Naj is going to be worried about that, and therefore that's going to be permitted because he's not going to drill a hole and replace it with a different color than the rest of the cover because that's too obvious. So therefore, it's the amount of time it's going to take you to actually replace it. That amount of time is enough time already that it's going to replace the cover. If you replace the cover now, so then everything looks the same, and the guy succeeded in messing with the Jew's wine and the Jew not knowing about it. So now, Rabbi Bar Chana just told us that the whole dispute is when it's the same color, when it's plaster, and not when it's clay. which is a different color. Now we're going to have a statement of Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, which is seemingly only going to fit if the dispute is with clay and not plaster. So here it gets even more a little bit nitty gritty. So Meisvei, let's bring up a problem, a difficulty. Omer Rabbi Shimon Gamliel. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel once again is the opinion that requires the amount of time it takes to replace the cover. If it's just drilling a hole, that's going to be still permitted. He needs enough time you can actually replace the entire cover. So he said the following statement. He said, "V'halo stumo nicker," the hole that's been replastered. You could see it. It's nicker, bain milamala, bain milamata. So he says some vague statement about the hole that's been plugged in, that's been replastered, reclayed. It's obvious. You can see it that it's different from the top and from the bottom. So here's what you need a picture book exactly from the top. I guess when you're looking at it, you see the hole from the top. So then it's going to be obvious. He says, even from the bottom, when you take off the cover of the barrel, even from the bottom, you could see that it's been messed with. So now, in what case did he say that you can recognize that someone drilled a hole, someone tampered with your bottle? Is that with clay or is that with plaster? So now, says the Gemara, if you want to tell me not like we just said, that their dispute is a case of clay, which once again is a different color. The clay is a little bit of a darker color than plaster. It takes longer to blend in with the actual cover. So then it's very understandable. Handikatoni, stumo nicker, bain milamala, bain milamata. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel said that making a hole is it's recognizable from the top and from the bottom, because we're talking about clay. Clay is a different color. That's basically too recognizable. The auto worshiper is not going to do that. If he wants to mess with your wine, he's going to take off the cover and make a new cover, because this clay is recognizable from the top and from the bottom. So now, that's only good though if when Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel was talking to the rabbis, he was talking about a clay hole that was drilled. However, if it's talking about clay, that's a dispute. That's what he means. Stumo nicker. It's obvious. You can see the hole that's been filled in. Bein milamalu, bein milamata. However, if you want to tell me, like we just said from the name of Rabbi Yochanan, that the whole dispute is really revolving around plaster. So hold on. Plaster, you're right. Plaster, when you open up and you look from the bottom, you could see that it's been tampered with. But but from the top, it looks just like the regular cover of the barrel. From the top, you cannot identify the hole that's been drilled and filled in with plaster from the top. So what was Rabbi Shimon Gamliel saying? That the hole is recognizable from the top and from the bottom. It only would work if the dispute is about clay. If the dispute's about plaster, though, that statement of Rabbi Shimon Gamliel doesn't make sense. So, says the Gemara, really there's a little bit of background information which we haven't told you yet. What's that? Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, who delo yada ma'ikam rabbanan. The rabbis made a vague statement. When a hole is drilled, enough time for a hole to be drilled and replaced, then it's going to be, that amount of time is already too long, then the wine's going to be prohibited. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel wasn't sure exactly in what case were they speaking. So therefore, he told them as follows. Listen, guys, he said, basically, if you're talking about clay, which has that darker texture to it, so then I'll let you know that stumo is nicker, bein milamala, bein milamata. I'll tell you, that's too risky of the idol worshiper to do if you're talking about clay, because that's evident that it's been tampered with, whether it's on the top or on the bottom. So he's not going to do that because it's going to blow his cover. That's obvious. Yeah, nicker's obvious. Yeah, like lahakir is to recognize. Yeah, hakara is a recognition. Yeah, so no, it's good. I'm trying to think of all the words. Yeah, get my Hebrew back. So the Ibishal said, however, if you're talking about clay, he tells them So then listen, he said, so you're right, rabbis, you're right. The guy replaces the hole with plaster. You're right. When you come in and you look at the barrel on the top, it looks just like the rest of the barrel. So therefore, maybe you'll think, that's what you rabbis thought. You'll think that he'll do that. He'll drill it and replace it with plaster, and no one's going to catch him. But the problem is, when you take off the lid of the barrel, from the bottom, you could see that it's been tampered with. So therefore, the idol worshiper is still not going to do that. The only concern we have is he might replace the cover. But if you're talking about plaster or you're talking about clay, either way you go, he's not going to do that. It's too risky. He's going to get fired from his job. Even if we're talking about plaster, from the bottom, the Jew will see from the bottom that you messed with him, and therefore he's going to fire you. So therefore, the idol worshiper is not going to do that. Now,
you deal with plaster clay, you can put a siman on the field, some sort of.
Oh, we're going to ask. We're going to ask that 40 daf ago, is that we mentioned the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer. If it has a seal on it, it's going to be mutter. Basically, what you're saying is any sign. Exactly. I remember when I was dating. Yeah, I was in one I used. They're offering a lot of money to do like an hour or two of mashkiach. So I was walking in before Shabbos and after Shabbos, and being there Shabbos morning when they make the food. But one of the jobs is that you have to make sure, I think Saturday night, walk in the kitchen, that all of them had this seal. Now the seal there they used was a what do you call one of those hard plastic things that are like a Ziploc, less intense than a Ziploc. But basically, what was the point of it? The only way to open it is to snap it open.
It's like when you do electrical work, you put a lockout tag out.
Right.
People break it that way.
So it's not a seal that, like as we think, covers the whole food, but it's enough that for anybody to get into the food, you have to break that open. So we're going to ask in a second that we pass like Rabbi Eliezer, that one seal is enough. So what's the whole business over here? Just put it on, you're good to go.
Sorry,
you're good. You're just showing off that you remember from 40 daf ago. It's fine. So now this is Rabbi Shimon Gamliel's rebuttal to the rabbis. So now it's so good. So how are they going to respond? The Rabbanan, they say, Kaven de la yadia, since from the top I cannot recognize the hole that's been drilled and then re-plastered. So then lo masik adaite the apik chazile. A person doesn't think of this. When you go into your barrels that you've made and you look at the tops, all look the same, right? They're not going to think on every single barrel, but maybe the top looks the same. Maybe on the bottom it's going to look different. So therefore they say that is still, that shorter period of time is still enough that a non-Jew the idol worshiper might go and mess with your bottle and put on plaster. Because even though the top looks the same, right? So the idol worshiper is going to realize he's not going to check every single bottle if the top looks exactly the same. So therefore the rabbis are worried that that's still enough time that if you're gone for that, if you tell them I'm leaving and you're gone for enough time that it takes to drill and then plaster, that's still going to be a problem. That's one. Or inami zimnin dechalim. Or maybe sometimes he's going to cholim. What's cholim? He's going to. I'm sleeping. I'm cholim. I'm dreaming. What's cholim? Cholim. Oh, here. He's going to. He's gonna fill it in. Sladir. Sladir. What's sladir? It's sounds like he's gonna put some kind of, like he's gonna reform it. Yeah. He's going to fill up the hole from top and bottom. He's gonna redo the whole thing. Meaning, either that's one thing that the rabbis are concerned about, that maybe he'll realize that he's not gonna check the bottom, or maybe he'll actually redo the whole base. It sounds like you're gonna redo the whole and sladir it. Sladir. Old French, sladir. So you're going to somehow reform that hole, that even the bottom is going to look the same. So we were worried for that kind of reforming of the hole. Amar Rabba, halacha is Rabbi Shimon Gamliel. How do I know? Who said? He's one. There are many. Usually when you follow the many, you don't follow the individual. The end of our Mishnah, our Mishnah, the Gemara, they put it all together. But if you do like Mishnah Yomi, you'll see that this one Mishnah that has 4 segments is broken up into many, many different Mishnayos. So the last section of our Mishnah was only stated the opinion of Rabbi Shimon Gamliel. Now, when Rabbeinu HaKadosh, Rabbi Nasi, organized the Mishnayos, he would sometimes, even though it was the opinion of an individual, he would make it anonymous, that people should think it's like the opinion of the many. Now, in this case, we know that it's the opinion of the individual. So, however, in this case, he made it anonymous. He didn't say this is Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel's opinion, because he felt that the halacha accords with Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel. Same way, in general, you have an anonymous Mishnah, you can assume it's like many. So too here. So halacha is like Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel. Why? Since Vitnan Stomach Kivase, where is that? The very end of our Mishnah that only mentioned the opinion of Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel. The Tahaya Ochel al Shulchan Imo. You're that last case of you're eating on the same table as the idol worship. And you left flasks al Shulchan and lagen al Dulbaki and flasks in the cupboard, and you left you left them there, the flasks, and you left. So now, mash al Shulchan aser, what's on the table is prohibited. However, mash al Dulbaki mutter, what's in the cupboard is going to be permitted. The im amar lo, but if you told him, go enjoy yourself, have a party, so havi mazik v'shoseh, so then afsh al Dulbaki aser, even what's on the cupboard is going to be prohibited. Fine. That was that statement. Now, the very end was chavios psuchos asuros. Any open barrels, prohibited. Stumos mutaros, any closed barrels are permitted unless you were gone for enough time. Kadesha yiftach, he's going to open up, take off the cover, v'yigop, and replaster a new cover, v'tigop, and then let it dry. So that last statement only mentioned one opinion, Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel. Therefore, Rava said the halacha is like Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel. So says the Gemara, isn't that obvious? Pshita, yeah, obviously the last opinion is anonymous. Why would you have thought it's not anonymous? Says the Gemara. Our Gemaras have, we have like these 2 dots every 5 seconds, but take out the 2 dots and you can easily understand that this last part of the Mishnah is just a continuation of Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel. He was the last one that spoke. And you would have thought that the next 6 lines is all him speaking. Therefore, it's not an anonymous statement. It's not the author of the Mishnah making a statement anonymous. Rather, it's just a continuation of Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel. That's what you would have thought if you read the Mishnah. Therefore, he has to teach you that that statement is anonymous. So, Ma'od the Tema Kular Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel Katanila, Kamash Malan, that the novelty of what Rava taught us was that last part of the Mishnah is actually the author of the Mishnah. It's not the statement. It's not Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel speaking. It's the author of the Mishnah, and he's telling you that I'm only mentioning Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel's reason, his opinion, because the halakha goes with his opinion, and that's why we only mentioned it. Since that's true, so therefore the halakha is like him, and the amount of time it takes is a longer period of time. You have to replaster the top. And tomorrow we're going to start with your point. What did this feel? The whole time it's 2